Have you ever felt trapped in a situation so dark, so overwhelming, that giving up felt like the only option? There are moments in life when no matter how much we try, everything around us seems designed to break us. But what if I told you that even in the darkest storm, there's always a path, however narrow, toward freedom and light? Today, I want to share with you a story that's more than just a fable. It's a reflection of our inner battles, our resilience, and the incredible strength that lies within when we choose not to surrender. It began under a peaceful night sky, where a humble donkey named Tobias grazed quietly near his sleeping owner's hut. The stars shone with quiet wisdom, casting their soft glow on the earth, as if keeping watch over the sleeping and the innocent. All seemed calm until a sound broke the stillness. A creaking noise, subtle but ominous. Tobias, ever alert despite his gentle nature, raised his ears. From the shadows emerged a man whose very presence radiated cruelty. And before Tobias could even react, before he could bray to warn his master, he was silenced, muzzled, torn from everything he knew and loved. This wasn't just a theft, it was a betrayal of peace. A symbolic start to what many of us go through in life, when something sacred is suddenly ripped away, and we're dragged into places we never imagined. Tobias was taken to a place that can only be described as a vision of hell. A barren, poisoned land where life seemed to have withered. Donkeys with sunken eyes and broken spirits walked in endless circles, bound to millstones, their existence reduced to meaningless labor. They weren't living, they were enduring. The overseers of this cruel domain were men devoid of empathy. They fed the animals just enough to keep them alive, and lashed them into obedience with unrelenting brutality. Tobias, new to this horror, resisted with all the strength his spirit could muster. He tried to escape again and again, but every attempt ended in savage beatings. His body bore the marks, but it was a soul that began to crack. This part of the story is deeply symbolic. How often do we find ourselves caught in toxic environments, relationships, jobs, beliefs that strip us of our energy, our identity? At first, we fight back. We try to change things. But over time, the resistance fades. We grow weary, resigned, just like Tobias. Within a week, Tobias was barely recognizable. His indomitable spirit, the same one that had once pushed him to try escaping, was now reduced to mere survival. But here's the thing about fate. It often waits until we are on the brink to offer a way out. One day, a mechanical failure changed everything. The gates of the estate had jammed, and the men left them open while they worked on repairs. Tobias, now so underfed, had lost weight to the point that the chains binding him had loosened. Before him stood the path to freedom. But freedom, ironically, can sometimes be the scariest option when we've been in prison for too long. Fear gripped him. The memory of past punishments paralyzed him. He turned away, choosing the familiarity of suffering over the uncertainty of escape. And this is perhaps one of the most profound truths of the human condition. When pain becomes familiar, it becomes deceptively comfortable. Sometimes, we would rather live in a known misery than face the unknown of potential joy. At that crucial moment, a heron appeared, white as snow, serene yet powerful. It had been watching Tobias from a tree nearby. Its voice was calm but firm. "What are you doing, boy? You cannot miss this opportunity." It was a voice of clarity amidst confusion, the voice of wisdom we all wish would show up when we stand at the edge of decision. The heron didn't shout. It didn't scold. It simply reminded Tobias of something he had forgotten, that he still had a choice. With encouragement that cut through Tobias's fear like sunlight through clouds, the donkey gathered what little courage he had left. His body was weak, but his will flickered back to life. He broke free. He ran. But liberation is rarely easy. The men quickly noticed his escape and mounted their horses. And as if nature herself had been stirred, a massive rainstorm erupted. The skies opened, and the earth turned into a muddy trap. Tobias ran through the storm, blinded by the downpour, stumbling on logs and stones. Every step became a battle. Malnourished, beaten, exhausted, he was barely standing. And in that chaos, his spirit began to break again. Tears mixed with rain as he cried, "I can't do it." He wanted to give up. His legs trembled. His mind screamed to stop. And that is where many would fall. That is where most of us fall. But above the storm, the heron flew unseen, unwavering. Its voice, though faint amidst thunder, reached Tobias. "Keep going, Tobias. Don't give up. Please keep going." This voice is symbolic. We may not see the helpers in our lives, the mentors, the friends, the divine forces, but they exist. And sometimes, even when we feel completely alone, someone out there believes in us. Someone sees what we can't. The heron couldn't carry Tobias, but it did something more powerful. It believed in him when he couldn't believe in himself. And that is where we pause as part of the journey. Tobias is still running, still unsure, still soaked in fear and pain. But something inside him has shifted. The presence of the heron, the voice of wisdom and vision, has rekindled a flicker of hope. In the next part, we will witness what happens when that tiny spark of belief is protected long enough to become a flame. The storm raged on, as if the heavens themselves wept for Tobias. Each step was agony, not just from the wounds on his body, but from the weight of betrayal pressing down on his soul. And yet, somehow he moved, not with strength, not with willpower, but with a fragile thread of memory of a home once kind, of a voice once gentle. Through darkness and downpour, Tobias pressed forward, bruised, battered, unseen but not forgotten. The heron was still there, quiet, distant, waiting. It did not lead. It did not push. It simply stayed within sight, like hope keeping just enough distance to pull the broken onward. There's something profound about silent companionship. When life falls apart, we don't always need advice. We need presence. We need to know that someone or something still believes we can make it. And in Tobias's darkest hour, it was not grand speeches that moved him. It was the stillness of the heron, the memory of kindness, the whisper of worth. After what felt like an eternity, Tobias reached the edge of a place he once called home. The lights from the cabin flickered through the rain, like stars finding their way back into the sky. He collapsed near the gate. His body gave in, but his spirit somehow held on. His master rushed out, eyes wide, heartbroken at the sight of the creature before him. He dropped to his knees, tears mixing with the rain. "Tobias, what have they done to you?" He asked no more. He simply wrapped Tobias in warmth, whispered that he was safe now, and carried him inside. Healing is rarely dramatic. It's not thunder and lightning. It's quiet. It's slow. It's the soft unfolding of safety over time. Tobias didn't recover overnight. He flinched at sudden sounds. He feared the crack of leather, the closing of doors. But slowly, the warmth of the fire, the gentleness of the master, and the absence of cruelty began to mend what violence had broken. Weeks passed, and one day, Tobias stood. He stood not because he was told to, but because he chose to. He began walking again, grazing, playing, even protecting. He nudged other animals away from danger. He stood between a stray wolf and a newborn lamb, not out of pride, but because he remembered what it felt like to have no protector. And he vowed no creature around him would feel that way again. The most powerful transformation isn't visible. It happens when pain is not just healed but turned into wisdom, when scars don't vanish but shine with purpose. Tobias's body was never perfect again, but his presence, his quiet strength became a source of calm for others. And isn't that what true healing is? Not a race in the past, but rising from it with something deeper than before. Reflecting on this story, I'm reminded of the quiet resilience so many people carry. Not the loud victories, but the invisible battles, the ones fought in silence, in tears no one sees, in nights spent alone, telling yourself, just one more step. I believe the world is full of Tobiases, wounded, wandering, but unbreakable in spirit, and also full of Herons, those quiet presences that don't try to fix us, but refuse to leave us behind. The gentle power of stories. If you felt something stir inside you while listening to this, you're not alone. Maybe you've been Tobias. Maybe you've been the Heron. Maybe you've been both. If this story made you pause, reflect, or breathe a little deeper, perhaps it's worth sharing with someone who might need it too. Stories like this carry weight only when passed forward. They become more than tales. They become reminders, mirrors, medicine. And if this resonated with you, consider leaving a comment. Tell me your thoughts. I read every one. Share this with someone who might need a little hope today. Like this video if it reminded you that healing is possible. Subscribe if you'd like to walk further on this path of quiet wisdom and soulful stories. Together, we're building a space for hearts that have been bruised but not broken. A place for voices that once felt small, but now choose to speak. Let's walk this journey, one story at a time.